What's up, it's Brian from Gold Arrow Fitness. So we got good fats and we got bad fats. What the FAT is the difference? We're about to find out. Now before we dive into fats, I just want to say one thing. When people label things as good or bad, it kind of irks me because the world is not black and white. It's a million shades of gray. And when you are trying to pigeonhole something and put something into a good or bad category, you're just being intellectually lazy and you're not making the effort to understand the concept. So first let's talk about fat in general. I'm not a low fat guy, I'm not a no fat guy. I'm a fat in the appropriate amount kind of guy. So fat should make up between 10 and 30% of your total calories. You don't want to go under 10% of calories because then you're not getting the stuff that your body needs. But on the other end, you don't want to go over 30% of your calories from fat. Fat is very calorie dense. It takes up very little space in your stomach. It has over twice the amount of energy as carbs or protein. If you are having more than 30% of your calories come from fat, you're likely in a calorie surplus and you are probably gaining weight or displacing other things that you need in your diet. So first and foremost, there are four main types of fat. There is saturated fat, there is monounsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, and trans fat. Let's just start off with trans fat because that's so much different than the other three. Trans fat is when you partially hydrogenate an oil to increase the shelf life of a food. And there's no known health benefits to trans fat, and it really should be avoided at all costs. You'll notice on a lot of nutrition labeling, it'll say this contains 0 grams of trans fat, and that's a very good thing. But hopefully over time it'll just work its way out of the food supply as it has been doing lately. And that leaves us with the other three. And one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is almost all foods that contain fat contain all three of the remaining types of fats, but they just contain them in different amounts. Okay, so something might be heavier in saturated fat and lower in the unsaturated fats and vice versa. I'll put up a chart right now. Bob, can we get that chart? All right, thank you. So as you see here, a list of different foods, you see the different colors represent how much of each type of fat is in that food. You can see that, something like nuts and seeds contain more of the unsaturated fats, whereas something like dairy contains more of the saturated fats. All right, thanks, Bob. We're gonna start off with the unsaturated fats. Let's start off with polyunsaturated fats. So those are the omega-3s and the omega-6s. These are the only fats that are considered essential fatty acids, meaning that you have to get them from food. Looking at these through a vegan lens, some great sources of omega-3s would be like your flaxseed, your hemp seed, your chia seed, also walnuts. Again, these contain multiple types of fat, but they are higher in omega-3 fats. The omega-6 fat, some examples would be like canola oil, corn oil. That's a little bit easier to get into the diet than the omega-3s, so you might have to be a little bit more intentional with the omega-3s. That leads us into monounsaturated fats. Monounsaturated fats would be in like avocados, we got like walnuts, sunflower seeds, olive oil, peanut butter, and those kinds of foods. When you hear people talk about good fats and bad fats, typically when people are talking about the good fats, they're talking about the monounsaturated and the polyunsaturated because they're really more preferred than saturated fat. Now, saturated fat should be limited in the diet because it's a major contributor to heart disease, which is the #1 killer in the United States. Foods that are higher in saturated fats would be like dairy, ground beef, foods like that, animal products. That's one of the main reasons from a health standpoint that I am vegan, because I don't want to have all that saturated fat in my diet. As I said before, with all of these foods, you're getting saturated fat as well, but just not in the crazy amounts that you get with something like dairy. Recently, there's been some studies and research and people promoting the fact that saturated fat is healthy and good for you. I'm not really buying into it. If you start to read like how these studies are performed, it's pretty weak, and there's really not a consensus around it like there is limiting saturated fat in the diet, avoiding trans fat. That is pretty well accepted from all legitimate sources. So in conclusion, we definitely need to eat fats. Again, try to keep it between 10 and 30% of your total calories. You don't want to go much higher than that or much lower than that range. And just remember, the only fat that's truly bad is the trans fat. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Is it impossible to achieve your fitness goals? Have you tried and failed over and over again? Don't feel bad. Millions of people can relate, but what most don't realize is that the main reason for this is the inability to change behavior, and that's why Gold Arrow has introduced fitness consulting. What is fitness consulting? It's having professional guidance through one of the most difficult endeavors that you will attempt. Consultants are more than just coaches and give you much more than just a plan. They provide knowledge, support, and techniques to get you through the barriers that have held you back. An app called Lose It is the key tool that connects you to your fitness consultant, making sure you are never alone. If you're serious about finally breaking through barriers and living out your vision, go to goldarrowfitness.com and click on Fitness Consulting. In the meantime, subscribe to Gold Arrow Fitness on YouTube for free content, workouts, recipes, and fitness tips. There's no better time than right now to start living your vision that you have for yourself. Join Gold Arrow Fitness and take the first step to a healthier you.